Joining us now to expand on this debate and what sort of realignment could be taking shape before our very eyes is Candace Owens, the author of the new book, Blackout: How Black America Can Make Its Second Escape from the Democratic Plantation. So Candace, your recent exchange, I think that is something that is more representative of a larger conversation that's taking place. I mean, even this year, we've seen the Republican Party have greater outreach to black voters than I think that they have in the past. And I think any time where there's more competition trying to earn votes, that's a good thing for those recipients. Is your conversation that you had over this past weekend, is that part of a bigger issue?
Yes, it is part of a bigger issue. You know, what I've always realized or recognized is that what the left is really brilliant at is utilizing culture to get to Black America. And they've been doing this for a very long time, which is why, the Malcolm X clip that you just saw, he called this out early on. They're using entertainers, people that have no business speaking about politics, but they have large followings. And Cardi B is exemplary in only that she might be the most ignorant celebrity to have a platform, which is fine. She wants to be an entertainer. She can be ignorant. She can make noise. I have no issues with that. I have no issues with Cardi B's success. What I do take issues with is a sincere presidential candidate hiding throughout an entire year and then coming up from his basement and saying, I'm going to gift this interview to talk about Black America with Cardi B. And so that's what I was calling out. It was no shot to her personal character. It was more a shot to Joe Biden and his campaign for thinking so lowly of Black America that they couldn't, foster a conversation between him and somebody a bit more intellectual.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but a big part of your argument is the idea that the Democratic Party hasn't necessarily been looking out for Black Americans. They would rather instead use them for their own support, maybe revisit a certain topic once every 4 years in order to garner some of that support. But Joe Biden is someone who's been in politics for the better part of 40 years. And for example, during the primary, Kamala Harris had criticisms of him. And now when he's gotten the general election as well, he's said things such as, you ain't black if you don't vote for me, things of that nature. And that's not the only time that he's had a slip up. So is Joe Biden almost the epitome of this type of Democratic leader that you're talking about?
That's correct. I mean, something that doesn't get nearly enough airtime is that Joe Biden's mentor was a former KKK Cyclops. Right. This is a man that largely supported segregation when he was in the Senate in the 1970s. He believed, in his words, that Black people wanted to be segregated and that forced integration was going to be bad for the community. And these people are standing behind him at the same time calling Trump racist. And with no proof, there's nothing Trump has said that has been racist. So I was calling out the hypocrisy of the left and also the ignorance that we believe that just because he's with a celebrity whose music he does not listen to, a celebrity who he does not respect, that suddenly we should wipe his record clean and go, okay, I guess, Joe Biden's a cool guy now and we're going to have to vote for him. We have to think better than that as a community. And we have to really look at the records of the individual because his record tells a story and it's not a pretty one.
And acknowledging what you just said, too, I think it's important for no matter what the party is to actually make an effort to reach those voters, not just guaranteeing their vote or expecting their vote to some degree. And when you look at the Trump administration, they have made an effort on that front, whether it's through the First Step Act, HBCUs, opportunity zones, the economic message that they're trying to get across. It seems as if the Trump campaign and this White House has made that outreach to black voters with action. But just to be, I guess, introspective to some degree as well, has the Republican Party more broadly done enough to reach black voters?
They haven't, and I hope that that's something that my presence has changed. And I will say that I think the reason they haven't done a good job is because it's been difficult in the past. They've been smeared and libeled as racist every time they say anything about Black America. The left has really dominated that conversation. It has somehow, transformed, every Black American into believing that Republicans and conservatives are racist because they say it so many times, even when it's absent any proof. But I think that with people like me at the forefront and people that understand culture better, people that talk back, people that are willing to get into a political rap battle with Cardi B, it makes the entry point a bit easier for Republicans. And I do see them as seizing this moment under Trump, who is largely a cultural president. He gets it. He gets the significance of culture because he himself was a part of it for so long. And just being brave enough to endure the left's baseless attacks, being brave enough to say, you called me a racist and it means nothing because I'm not a racist, and pushing on in your points. That's really important. And I hope, and I'm starting to see that shift in the Republican Party.
And Candace, one thing that I know that a lot of your supporters and followers appreciate you is that you don't shy away from these conversations, even when people try to go to ad hominem attacks. I saw some of the attacks levied against you by Cardi B, and it was a way of ignoring the conversation. It was a way of ignoring the debate. And I even think that sometimes the allegation of racism is a way to ignore actually having this conversation that you and I are having right now. So when we talk about this, though, and we talk about the idea that you said President Trump is a cultural president, he understands the moment that's taking place right now. We see the Democratic Party, for example, moving far to the left, and we see the Republican Party. There is a difference that's taking shape, but it's a little bit harder to define right now. So I want to ask you, what do you think the future of the Republican Party looks like?
It's going to be interesting after Trump. I think Trump brought in an entirely different market of voters, myself included, because of his personality, because of his bravery, as I mentioned earlier, because he had the spine to endure the constant attacks, and the attacks came from both sides. Let's not pretend that the Republican Party was behind Trump when he was running.
Right.
He really was more of an independent person with conservative beliefs, which is something that I identify myself as well. I'm more of an independent with very conservative beliefs. And he sort of just, I guess, is encouraging the Republican Party to remove themselves or move away from that more establishment brand that they're so often associated with.
No, I think that's a really good point. And I mean, when we look ahead to 2024, there's a lot of uncertainty about what direction the Republican Party will go in. A lot of people are wondering if it'll return to the Mitt Romney type of base, if it'll continue the.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Fraud, so let's definitely not go make a turn to Mitt Romney.
Yeah, maybe on the Democratic ticket, actually. He might have a healthy chance right there. But I think that there is a big question to consider of what happens after President Trump. And I think that if we're looking at what is happening right now, there is an opportunity to expand the Republican tent, to borrow a phrase from the Democratic side of the aisle, because the progressive side doesn't seem to be as inclusive as it once was. It's now, if you're not pro-choice, for example, you don't have a spot in the Democratic Party. And it didn't always used to be that way, just to use that as an example. So do you think that the Republican Party is expanding its tent?
I do believe so, and I think that they're starting to understand that there are a lot of people that have conservative beliefs that are more cultural. It's okay to be funny. It's okay to make funny videos. We've got people that are rapping about conservative principles. The party seems more fun, more inclusive, and younger and fresher now. And I think that is all largely due to President Trump. And they should seize the opportunity and not shy away from it, because we really have an opportunity not just to expand the Republican base, but to save this country. And that's kind of what's the most important thing, making sure that the values that this country was founded upon still exist, and that we protect them against these more leftist, radical, Marxist, socialist ideals that we're seeing sweeping the nation.
I think you're right, and I think there's a reason why you're one of the leaders in that movement as well. I think a lot of people are opening up and waking up, I should say, to the ideas that you're putting out there and starting to think a little bit more for themselves rather than what has traditionally been followed in American politics. But Candace Owens, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you very much for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me, you guys. Have a good one.
You as well.